I'm
Okay.
ready. I'm excited. I think mock drafts this time of year are fun. I would love to go back come August and look at mock drafts because we still have free agency draft to go through. So it's going to be very different come August, but I think it's a good exercise to do now because you can gauge where certain players are based on the perception of where they might be or who might be brought in. So James Cook for me is one of those people that I'm super interested to see where he goes because if you
Oh
believe the
man.
Bills aren't going to bring in a running back, he goes higher. If you believe they do bring in a running back, he goes lower. So those are kind of things where, depending on you're leaning on what the Bills will do. Obviously, you can tell I'm a Bills fan. It plays into your value of him. So
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, James Cook is definitely one of those running backs who's like he's kind of been going in the 9th, 10th round in all of these, and it could be a steal of a draft. It could be not. So okay, let's
it could be
start.
not right.
Yep.
They could go crazy.
Yep. Okay, so this is a Superflex tight end premium startup draft. There's only 11 picks. We're only doing 11. So Jeffrey Jabroni, let's go. Draft is live. 1 minute picks. Mahomes goes first. Now, I kind of have to ask this to whoever is here. Do you think Allen is a competitor for the 101, or is it just Mahomes and only Mahomes?
I think it's Mahomes and only Mahomes. Honestly, I'm a Bills fan. I love Josh Allen. The rushing upside in fantasy is great. The only way I would put Allen there is if they bring in another bigger name wide receiver. If they go out and trade for T. Higgins, then I put Allen probably at 101 over Mahomes.
Okay.
But Kansas City could also go out and sign someone and easily
Yeah.
be there as well.
Yeah. Where are you at? I'll make. Oh, Jalen Hurts, great. Oh, Jalen Hurts at 4. He's usually been going around 103 right now. So Mahomes and Allen. Let's say if Allen gets Jordan Addison, does he get that bump there
No,
or okay?
no, I'd want a proven guy.
Yeah.
Even if they bring in someone. They'd have to bring in a big name. If they sign someone like Jacoby Myers, that doesn't push them far enough up there. But I could also see it if they invest heavily in the offensive line, which is what I want them to do as a Bills fan. I can see the case for it just with that rushing upside in fantasy. Clearly, Mahomes is the better pure passer.
Yeah.
But we could see Kansas City do nothing in the wide receiver and lose Juju.
Yeah.
The Bills go out and invest in the offensive line and bring in a Jacoby Myers or a Darius Slayton, who's my preferred wide receiver, and maybe draft a guy in the 3rd round, a lower end guy. And then I can see you making that case just based on rushing upside and the potential. But that's like best case where the Bills do a lot and the Chiefs do nothing to get there. I think there's that conversation at 2 where it's Allen, and then does Hurts, Burrow, Herbert sneak into 2 if something changes there. So if Burrow is true and they're going to keep Higgins and they bring in something to help out that, does he move up into that spot? Does Jalen Hurts move up with his rushing upside if they don't bring in a running back and let Miles Sanders go and just stick with Kenneth Gainwell? So there's potential there, I think, at the 2 and 3 to toss things up.
Oh man, I'm really surprised here. Justin Fields fell to me at 12. But I'm also not a huge Fields believer. But I feel like at 12th overall, I don't know. I think, you know what? I think I'm just going to go back.
I'm surprised Fields is on the board, but Kyler Murray's gone.
Yeah, and that's kind of what pushed him down, I think. It's usually kind of back to back right there. Oh boy, it's clicking. I'm going to pick Dak and Watson. My first 2 picks, I want those. I mean, still young quarterbacks, young-ish, but just kind of proven quarterback ones. I'm still worried about Fields' future to some extent. Just mostly his injuries have been really concerning for me. So Murray and Fields on the same team, that's going to be a heck of a boom bust, at least with rushing.
Yeah. I like the picks of Dak and Watson. I have Dak as my 5th ranked quarterback behind, obviously, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Hurts. I have Dak above Lamar Jackson, above Trevor Lawrence. I have Watson right in there with Trevor Lawrence and Lamar Jackson. Hope he can turn around. He looked really bad at the end of last season.
Yeah.
I mean, last season he started to pick it up at the end, so it's interesting. But you cover yourself with Dak. You have that solid starter every week, so I like that pick for you on the turn.
Awesome, thank you. So CeeDee Lamb and AJ Brown, I love that wide receiver stack.
Love that.
So CeeDee, I've started noticing people kind of saying that he's entering the tier with Jamar Chase. Do you think that's
I
close?
literally said this half an hour ago or on the podcast I did before this, the Bills Mafia podcast, that I have him as one of my top 5 players. I think he could easily push Jamar Chase for that number 2 overall. Right, new offensive coordinator. They could revamp that offense to kind of play to Dak's strengths. Now, I don't know what Lamb was last year. He was up there. He finished as the wide receiver 5 in PPR, with Dak missing a chunk of games. And when Dak did play, he had a ton of interceptions. So if they can get Dak for a full season, lowers those interceptions, play to Dak's strengths, I could see CeeDee Lamb making that jump. I think he's right in that conversation with Jamar Chase.
I love that. Okay, you're on the clock again.
I know.
Christian McCaffrey time. Let's talk about it. Running back.
So again, in my conversation I had earlier in this podcast was top 5 players. It was Jefferson, Chase, Christian McCaffrey. I had Patrick Mahomes and CeeDee Lamb. I think McCaffrey, we've seen if he's healthy, is a guaranteed top 5 running back.
Yep.
I don't see any way that he's not.
Yep.
Now, obviously, we saw a healthy year this past year. We haven't seen it the years before, so there's still that stigma. Like, is he going to be healthy? Same thing with Saquon Barkley. San Francisco, he's on the dreaded San Francisco squad where they just get injured left and right. So there's that kind of superstitiousness about that team in that running back position.
Yeah.
But I'll take that upside. Like, if he's healthy, I've easily got a top 5, if not top 3 guaranteed running back if he's healthy.
Yep. So Miguel asks, after Mayer and Kincaid, who's the 3rd best tight end? Have you done very much tight end scouting so far for this draft? Where are you at with that?
I've done some, not a ton, to be honest with you. I don't think it matters, to be honest with you, because rookie tight ends traditionally aren't that good. There's not a ton of great landing spots for tight ends, and there's a ton of available ones in free agency. So even the top 2, I don't think they're really going to matter this year for fantasy unless they land in a perfect situation. If one of them lands in Detroit and Detroit doesn't bring someone in, all day I'll take one of those guys. Yeah. But there aren't many good situations that really make me go, oh my gosh, I want this tight end.
Yeah.
Even if it's somewhere, I mean, I just can't think of another good situation. Maybe if Ingram leaves Jacksonville and they bring in one of the top guys, but even the top 2, I'm just kind of like, yeah, maybe I'll draft them late in the draft and see what happens. But
yeah,
I don't think it matters that much that far down.
Yeah, B Doug's in the sleeper chat. Hey, if you're on sleeper, could you just kind of hop on over to the YouTube chat? That way it come up later too. But B Doug's in the sleeper chat says Musgrave, and I love him. I love Luke Musgrave. Musgrave. Yeah. My worry is he just hasn't played a lot of games, but his potential's up there. And when I'm drafting late in rookie drafts, I want to be drafting, athletic potential in my tight ends. So him, I think Washington is going to be a great NFL tight end. With just how well he can block, and he's just a beast. But I don't really know how much he's going to be used in the passing game. So for fantasy football, I agree. There's going to be a couple good tight ends for football teams, but I'm not quite sure. Even like Mayer, with how he projects, I think he could be a good fantasy tight end in the right system.
In the right system, yep.
But you also kind of look at him like, man, he's a good blocker. He's not the fastest tight end, so he's not going to be a tight end that whenever he's on the field, he's just going to show out in the passing game, and the coach is going to be like, okay, he's wide open. We have to scheme him, So that'll be interesting, but I do like just drafting athleticism when it comes to the tight end.
Yeah, I mean, if in a rookie draft, I'm looking at tight end, I want that athleticism over, let's say size, and I'll take that. But I'm not gonna spend early either. I probably won't draft one until the third round, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Kind of want to get your thoughts on Cooper Kupp there at 309.
Oh man, so the team is Lawrence by Dijon and Cooper Kupp. So here, actually, let me take my picks first. Let's see what we got.
Picks.
We got. Well, while I'm making it, let's hear what you think about it.
So I got asked this if Kupp was there, and I think he's the big polarizing player because we saw that he can be the wide receiver one. 2 years ago, obviously played really well at the start of the season, then got injured. I think a lot of it depends on what your thoughts on the Rams offense. I have a lot of concerns. Is Kupp going to be fully healthy to start the season? And what is Matthew Stafford this season come up if he plays? Now he says he's going to play, but one hit and he might be done because his wife is super not about the concussion life.
Yeah.
So I think there's that nagging thing. Like he's obviously old. He's won a ring now. There's no, if he hadn't won the Super Bowl, I would say, yeah, Stafford's sticking around for another 2 years. I just don't see it now. So I think Kupp's good. Where he got him at the 309 behind Amon-Ra and Diggs and my pick of Higgins, like great value there, especially as your wide receiver one in the third round. He did great. B-Dubs did great getting him there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I agree. It kind of changes how the draft is going to go for you now. You're going more towards the win now. And just you can draft your youngsters. Obviously, he just drafted Robinson, but you kind of need that guaranteed production now. So on one hand, it's kind of nice because it really just gives a strategy to your draft now. You know what you're going to do.
And that team he's building there is a kind of a boom bust team. Like everybody expects Trevor Lawrence to be the next great thing. Obviously, he took Trevor Lawrence over proven production of Dak, Kyler, even someone like a Tua. So believes in that upside. Obviously, took Bijan Robinson as the first running back, so he's believing in that potential. Taking Kupp with that potential. Now is taking Eckler. So I think Eckler's more that solid piece for now. So his first 3 picks have a lot of built-in risk. If they all pay off, your team is stellar, right? If Trevor Lawrence makes that leap and he is a top 5 quarterback and Kupp is a top 3 wide receiver and Bijan Robinson is a top 10 running back, I mean, you're solid.
Yep.
If they miss, you miss hard.
Yeah. Yeah, you're trading away Kupp for Kupp, Eckler, that's going to be fun this year. These last 2 picks are great for redraft. And like honestly, if you're not trying to win your dynasty league, it's what are you doing? So I like this aggressive approach. I find that sometimes we can get so focused on youth that we kind of miss production like an Eckler in the 4th round,
Yeah, that's how Dynasty skews. Dynasty skews to the next greatest hotness, right? It's who's the second-year player that's poised for a breakout? Who's going to take the jump? Who's the next, sleeper pick, right? We get this, and it's rookie. What rookie is going to be huge? Instead of drafting a guy like, we've seen players like even last year, Brady, Rodgers go late, and they're productive. But everybody wants that young guy that they think they're going to have for the next 10 years. Like you can get a guy. Like I look at Dynasty in 3 years in 3-year groups. Who's the guy I can have for the next 3 years, and then see what happens, right? So I look at someone like Stephon Diggs in the Watson team there at the 5 spot. I think Diggs has 3 more years, but he's going to be a top 10 receiver for the next 3 years. You did really well there, getting him. Like you don't need a Garrett Wilson or something like that. You can take some of that shorter term play
Yeah.
and go from there.
So Jeff brings us up in the chat. Jefferson over those quarterbacks are interesting. So for you, with how you do value Jefferson, would you take him over a Herbert or a Lamar or a Lawrence?
I would not take him over Herbert. I would take him over Lamar and Lawrence. I have questions of Lamar, where he's going to be, what that looks like for him. Dang it, I really wanted Chris Godwin.
That was a great pick.
So I worry that where he's going to be, and who he's throwing to. Like, he may probably be back in Baltimore. Don't have a great receivers. Like, is he going to be willing to run as much as he normally does with all the questions around contract? So I would have taken Herbert at 5, Jefferson at 6, and then probably even Chase over Lamar and Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
But I also would, if I was doing the draft myself, I would have went the way it went. I would have had Herbert at 5, Jefferson at 6, Chase at 7, probably Dak at 8, and probably then CD at 9 or 9-10.
So J10 Payne, which is J10 Fantasy in Sleeper right now, he says, I already have Pitts and Andrews. I really debated Goddard over. Oh, I've really debated Goddard there instead of Godwin. Too wild, right? Okay, so yeah, he was talking about tripling up on tight end. What do you think? What do you think about his double stack of Pitts and Andrews right there in tight end premium leagues?
I like it because they're going to be solid productions. I would not have triple stacked it. I think it's a great double stack, right? Like, I think Andrews is proven production. Everybody expects Pitts to bounce into what everyone thought he was, and he hasn't been for the past 2 years. I still think the potential's there.
Yeah.
I'm a balanced drafter. I like to have a balanced draft. It's hard for me to go basically start your draft 4 picks with 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, and basically negate wide receiver and running back. It's a bold strategy. It's just not a strategy I like. But if I'm gonna do it, that's where you want to do it. You want to get Pitts and Andrews, have that market down, especially with the tight end premium in this league. That would be. I'm curious to see what that looks like when he gets to running back, because he's now waiting until the 6th round to get a running back. And after he took Godwin, which is who I wanted at 504, 4 running backs went. And right, so he could see, he gambled there. He took Godwin, and he's hoping that a running back comes back, and we'll see what that looks like for him. What is left for him for his RB1. Now it's a 0 RB strategy, so you have to load up and hope it works out for you. So we'll see what happens. It's a different strategy than I would take, because I'm just more of a balanced drafter, but I like it. Yeah. I like doing that. I'm not sure I would have done both with quarterback and tight end. I probably would have done one or the other, but you did both, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm okay if you do double tight ends and did, Burrow, Pitts, Andrews, and took, Devontae Adams instead of Daniel Jones, or a running back there. And so we had a running back and wide receiver, and then waited for a second quarterback. But we'll see how it plays out. It's interesting, and that's what I like about mock drafts. For me, I love drafting, but it's looking back after the draft and analyzing some of these different strategies to see what people did, and analyzing how I would do differently, or did this work? That, because he's gambling, right? J10 Fantasy is gambling on a good running back, being able to fill out that running back spots in 6 and probably 8 and 9 and 10, seeing how that works out in the long run. So after the draft, hindsight is great, because you can go, okay, this didn't work. Maybe I shouldn't have drafted Daniel Jones. I should have taken running back. Or, hey, it did work. Maybe I can try to push it next time, because there's no stakes. This is the time to try those things out. So I like it. I like it as a thought exercise of what could be.
So Josh asks, he says, first time caller, long time listener. What are your thoughts on Pickens? Big body receiver with new quarterback. What do you think about him?
I like him from a talent and athleticism and size wise. Obviously, I don't want to say off-field issues, but the concerns and red flags that people had in the draft with them are still there. He has a temper. He has a little bit of that Antonio Brown in him. Like, we've even seen this year where he gets a little upset. Tomlin knows how to deal with that, because he's dealt with those guys before. I like Pickens. I don't know if Pickens is a great quarterback. For where you got him at 5-10, with the guys on the board of Pittman, DJ Moore, Christian Watson, Traylon Burks. I think you did good. Like, I think you're playing that upside on a team that already has Lamb and AJ Brown. So you already have solid wide receiver, so you can gamble a little bit on your third wide receiver. Again, this is a team that has no running backs currently, so playing that zero running back strategy, and that's my issue. So when you're playing, if you go into a draft and say, "Hey, I want to do zero RB," if you're late in the draft, like it worked out for Josh that he is only really the second team to do zero RB, so he can do it. If there's 4 teams ahead of you doing it, you can't do it because it's just not going to work out for everyone. Like not every. More than really 3 teams is really the max for me in a 12-team league that can do zero RB. So you don't want to be the 4th team trying it because it's just not going to work out for you. So he's got the luxury of more people doing it. So Pickens as your wide receiver 3, I think, is a great choice.
Yep. No, that's great. Yeah, I love Pickens. I would still, let's see, wide receivers. Let's do a little quick game of Would You Rather. Would you rather have Pickens or Michael Pittman?
That's a tough one. I think I would rather have Pickens because I know the quarterback, I know the situation, I know the coach. Pittman, we don't know who the quarterback is. We have a new coach, so that's up in the air. I mean, it looks like they could trade with Chicago and get the 1 pick and take Bryce Young, which wouldn't be horrible. So I think I'd rather have Pickens just because there's less variables there.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Pittman is a really interesting value right now because he's going in the 6th round right now. And there was a little bit last season that we were kind of talking above like him kind of leveling up, and he looked like it, but then just with how bad the Colts offense turned out, I don't blame him for just not producing. But yeah, that'll be interesting. How about Pickens or Watson? Christian Watson.
I go Pickens. I think athleticism-wise, I think they're pretty equal. I'm pretty sure Pickens is a little bit taller. Watson's 6'5", and George Pickens is 6'3". So Watson's a little bit taller, but I just like the athleticism and what Pickens can do. I'm not as concerned about the red flags as far as his temper, and him causing himself to get ejected from games or stuff like that. I think he'll rein that in as he gets a little older, and Tomlin will work through that with him. So I would rather have Pickens over Christian Watson.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Watson, like he showed a lot of encouraging signs, but still, you look at what Pickens was able to do and just how good of a receiver that he is. He's not just kind of like Watson. There was a couple times that it just kind of seemed like, he just kind of ran the cornerback.
Yes.
It wasn't anything special. I mean, it was special. He has special speed, but there's a part of me that's like, if he is really going to be the alpha on that team, defenses should figure out how to scheme him out,
Yes. Watson, I like. I mean, just Rodgers probably goes back to the Packers is I think what I'm hearing and what's I think the leaning right now.
It changes every day. It's crazy.
It does. I think the general consensus now is he goes back. Helps Watson. If Rodgers leaves, then there's a huge concern there for me in terms of like who's throwing the ball. Like I'm not a huge fan of Jordan Love being all that good, so I think that's a huge question mark there.
So you drafted Derrick Henry at the 6'9". How do you project him? Are you worried at all about how the offense will look potentially without Tannehill next year? Or how do you even project that offense?
I project it being bad. They released a ton of people today, including Taylor Lewan. Robert Woods was another release today. So they're definitely revamping. If they move Tannehill, I think they're going to try. I think the offense still runs through Derrick Henry. I don't think they have a quarterback that can control an offense. So I'm encouraged by the volume. Now, he was my 4th running back behind McCaffrey, Najee Harris, and Swift. So for me, it was just value there. Like I liked him better than Mixon. Like upside of Derrick Henry is running back 1.
Yep.
As my 4th running back, I can play that value and play the risk. Like if that offense is bad and he just has a rough season, I'm not losing. Yes, I lost out on a Mixon or Marquise Hollywood Brown. I was confident that Judy would get back to me. So I'm playing that little bit of risk, but I thought the value there, because if you get a guy that can be a top 2-3 of his position in the 6th round, I'm super happy with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have 2 running backs right now, McCaffrey and Henry, that on week 1 for redraft rankings, they should be both in the top 4.
1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, we got 2 questions now. GREMZ. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Josh, you better pick. You're on the clock. He says, trying to get Fields for the 103 and 210. I'm assuming Superflex. Any thoughts? I think that's still, I think about like, who would I rather have? Fields or Stroud? I think I would still pick Fields currently, because I've seen him do it, and I think that's very important with quarterbacks. But what do you think actually takes to get Fields there?
Oh, Fields is so up in there because, right, is Chicago going to roll with Fields? Are they going to trade him? 103 is a high. If it was the 106, I'd say, yeah, I think that's doable. I mean, if I'm the Fields owner, I'm taking the would I take the 103? Depends on my team. If I'm going to win now, probably not. If I'm going to rebuild, yes. I don't know if I want to pay 103 and what he said, 210.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to pay that for Justin Fields, because I think that 103 could be, right, is that Stroud? Is that Young? Is that, right? You're clearly getting either one of the top 2 quarterbacks or Bijan Robinson, right? Like, you're getting one of the 3 best players, which to me is, there's a tier break there. Like, I think the 2 quarterbacks and Bijan Robinson, as far as players go in the rookie draft, that's that first tier. Then, so you're getting the last guy in that tier. I just don't know if I'd want to pay that. I think it really builds on team construction. It's not a bad trade. I don't have the charts for 2 QB. I only have 1 QB pulled up from peaked in high school, but I think it's fair market value for him. I just don't know if I want that. I mean, right now, probably wouldn't do it. I'd probably wait to see how free agency shakes out, because if they don't bring in a wide receiver for him, you're hoping they draft one, and that's risky. But if they go out and bring in a guy, then Fields' value goes up, and I think it's more worth it then. And I don't think Fields' value is going to change enough for the guy. If he's willing to do it now, he's going to do it later on as well. I don't think it changes, but it just changes for me getting Fields if he gets a better weapon.
Okay. That makes sense, because it's interesting, because Fields for me, and it might just be that I'm too skittish when it comes to injuries for him, but like Fields for me in redraft leagues or in best ball leagues, he's ranked pretty high. But it's funny though, because for dynasty leagues, I just don't have him ranked that high, and I could really see a Stroud or Young really kind of take that next step over him, just even longevity in the position. Because like for me, for Herbert and a Lawrence over like even like a more rushing quarterback, like a Lamar or Murray or Fields, is the way that I like my quarterbacks for dynasty is they're really good passers of the ball,
Yeah.
And there's certain longevity that comes with that, with when their production is still like, I like them mobile still, obviously, but when their production is so based on rushing, I kind of get worried a little bit in dynasty, because I hope that Lamar bounces back, but really his peak only lasted like 2 to 3 years. And, he's young enough that he could bounce back, but it's a back and forth. Oh, we got a smash accept. Someone said smash accept under this trade offer. So get ready.
Okay. I mean, I definitely think it's not a horrible trade.
Oh, this is a new trade. Market. This is a new trade.
Oh, new trade. Okay.
New trade offer. Sorry. Kyle Taylor asks, I have to be careful with reading these names. Someone got me pretty bad last live stream. I've got an offer, inbox offer for you guys. So he was offered it. 12-team start 10 PPR Superflex. Get the 103 Oh man, this is going to be okay. Get ready. 103, Debo, Jacobs, Pickett, and give Trevor Lawrence.
So you give Trevor Lawrence, you get the 103.
Debo, Jacobs, Pickett.
Oh, I do that. Smash accept left and right. I'm not a Trevor Lawrence believer, first of all. Okay. Now, I guess it would also pertain on who you have to drop, because you're going to have to drop a lot of guys to fill up space. So if you have room on your bench and you're dropping scrubs, I say do it. I think that's crazy value for Trevor Lawrence. I would think like the 103 and Pickett could get you Lawrence. Yeah. Personally. Yeah. So getting Jacobs, I get it. You're getting production. You're getting every week starters. You're getting 3 or 4 every week starters in that trade for 1 every week starter.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much getting the competing roster right there. Yeah. You just need a tight end. So, because I mean, with that 103, if you wanted to, you could draft Gibbs there. Gibbs or, so yeah, I love that trade. Leave this draft right now and accept it, Kyle. And he does have people he can drop. Yeah, accept it right now. Hopefully they aren't watching.
Yeah, I'd accept
right that. So Sedated Fork asks, did you get sniped?
No, I'm debating.
Okay.
So this is where I'm debating.
Okay.
I'm debating between James Cook, but I already have four running backs, or Mike Evans, and I only have 3 wide receivers. I would love to take James Cook here for the value, but I'm going to take Mike Evans. If I would have played this differently, I probably would have taken a wide receiver instead of DeAndre Swift. Probably, I wanted Godwin where I got DeAndre Smith. Probably would have taken Debo instead of Najee Harris at 4, and that would allow me to take James Cook at 9. So this is where hindsight comes into play, where I'm like, okay, I can see now. Probably could have passed on Najee, who I really love, and gotten James Cook later. Because we were talking about James Cook earlier. That's where my dilemma was. Like, man, I really want James Cook. The value is there in the 9th round, but team build says don't take another running back.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just having to balance that value there. But it's nice though, because even though Evans is a lot older, like he still has good value there. It's not like you're having to sacrifice a lot of value.
Yeah, and I'm building a team that's more win this year, next year. Like I haven't taken any rookies. I've got guys that are, a little bit older, but not super old. I mean, Henry's old, but Judy, Ridley, Evan's a little old, but I'm trying to balance that measure where I can be competitive this year and see how it plays out. Then I can, make guys. So I could have taken Cook and then hope maybe it was trade bait later on, but I hate doing that because if it just, you end up trading low on them because you just need to get rid of them. This is where I talk about this a lot. Like, the difference between someone like me and you that do this semi-professionally or professionally versus some random person who just shows up at the draft with the sheet they printed off 10 minutes before of the top 300 players is being able to adjust later on. And so I like the Evans pick. I don't need the running back depth. I felt like I needed the wide receiver depth. But if all of a sudden, Evans is having a great year, and I can trade him away and pick up maybe a tight end that I need because I haven't taken one yet, or I need to get some youth, or all of a sudden my old guys, let's say Evans is old and washed, which I don't think he is. Let's say McCaffrey gets hurt. Let's say my team just is all of a sudden horrible. Najee Harris doesn't reach his potential. Derrick Henry gets hurt. I can shift some of these pieces and get some assets for next year. So it allows me the option to rebuild. I also like guys at this point in this year where there's going to be hype. So Evans has been talked about trade value. That he could get traded. I want guys like that where there's this hype around them. Where all of a sudden, if Evan gets traded to, let's say, Buffalo, which would make me super happy, like the hype around him is going to shoot his value up. I like doing that in these kind of drafts at this time of year where it's like, hey, let me get a guy that's got some possible hype. Love the Derek Carr pick by Josh there. Can really, all of a sudden, Carr goes to the Jets. Carr goes to...
I mean, in reality, he goes to anywhere. Right?
I mean, it's not anywhere. If he goes to New Orleans, I don't think people are super happy because they don't have much around him. He goes to Carolina, maybe they're not as excited. Yeah, I just like that. Right, wherever he goes, he's going to be when people are in the news cycle. it drives their price up a little bit more, and I like having that. I love Gems pick DeAndre Hopkins in the 8th round. Another guy like could get traded. That's probably going to get traded. That buzz for him is going to be huge. And so if you're looking as a possible trade piece, like it just gives you an extra value to that asset. Like, yes, Hopkins and Carr are going to be good, but if they get traded, you have that option and see what you get. You might get that Trevor Lawrence crazy trade where you get 5 starters for a guy because they're just buying into the hype on him. So you can really capitalize on players. And that's what I like to do this time of year is just draft those guys who've got some buzz.
Yeah. So I asked in the chat, what are some favorite values? Let's see. Jeffrey Jabroni said Debo at 5-1. Where are you at with Debo Samuel this year?
I honestly missed Debo was still there, and I would have taken him over Najee had I recognized it. I was just like, oh, let me take a running back and Najee. I like Najee a lot. I think Debo can be great. I mean, obviously he's got that dual threat rushing ability. I probably didn't look for him because I already have McCaffrey, and I don't really like to double up that early in draft on the same team. I don't need that redundancy there, so I think Debo is probably the best value I've seen so far, especially since he went after guys like Adams. He went after Garrett Wilson. Even Amon-Ra went before him. I think even DK at 4.7, DK Metcalf is a value there. I really like that.
Let's see. Addison at 7.6. What do you think about Addison around there? Let's see the other wide receivers he went around. He went around Burks. So he went before one pick before Burks, but Burks. Watson, Judy, and Deontay Johnson were the picks, 3 picks before he was drafted. What do you think about that value?
So I took Judy, and I like Judy more than him. I could see him and Watson. I'm surprised Burks went there. I'm surprised Hopkins, Cooper, Kupp, or Amari Cooper and Terry McLaurin went after Treylon Burks. I think that's the right spot for Addison. I'm going to the combine in a couple weeks, and I'm super interested to see how those wide receivers, those top 3 wide receivers, shake out in terms of how they measure up, how they run their 40s, how they run their drills. If one of them falters, because honestly, it's those top 3, and then I see a clear gap between the next group of wide receivers in this rookie class.
Who's at the top of your next tier? Just curious.
I had to pull up a list because I can't remember names at this point. It's just not for me. It's a pretty far gap, I think. In terms of that 3, so there's no one I'm really like super excited about. But that's why I'm excited for the combine. I really don't do a ton of rookie scouting until the combine because it's such a wash at that point. Like anything can happen. Like a guy could have a horrible combine and just fall, and it becomes really, for me, before the combine, it's all built on this like hype that really has no
the spillers.
It's just like, it's just like, we saw this, like we saw this game film. I'm like, cool, but what have we really seen? So I really like to wait till the combine to really start scouting people. So I'm excited to go to the combine for the first time ever, just to kind of see those things. And I think we really start picking up the buzz on those guys. Every year in the combine, we see guys rise and fall based on how they do at the combine. So for me,
we even saw how far Tajay Spears jumped from having a good Senior Bowl. Players like that. People never really heard of.
I think my guy I have at 3 is probably Josh Downs in terms of wide receivers.
Oh, I love him.
I do too. I think for me, he's small. He's 5'10", so I'm curious to see what he measures at the combine. If he measures in at 5'11" and he gets up from 175 to 180, he's still small, but again, at that point, it's fit. Where he lands. Keyshawn Butte, I like, but I'm not overwhelmed by him.
Yeah, he's kind of weird.
And then I know people love Zay Flowers. Again, another 5'10", 170-some pound guy. I just don't know. I don't know if there's room for 2 small guys in the draft.
He's an outlier, and I don't know. I like his film. He's fun to watch, but I don't love drafting outliers when it comes to fantasy.
I agree. He's someone that like if I could, midway through the season he hasn't done much, I could try to get him thrown in, and he might take a year or two to develop. Those small guys are always just kind of like, well, maybe they will, maybe they won't. So that's what I'm saying. It's a big gap after the top three for me, where it's like there's too many question marks for me to be like super excited about it. Post combine, it might be, hey, one of them ran, faster than we expected, measured a little higher, even a half an inch, maybe they, added 10, 15 pounds. I'd be excited about that.
Yeah.
So I did not draft a second quarterback.
Yeah.
Part of that is because I just like.
Oh man, I have to say though, for going 0 tight end, picking Waller.
Yeah, Waller's great. I mean, I waited to get Dulcich, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
I didn't draft a second quarterback. I still think there's some competent pieces there late. I had thought about Mac Jones in my last pick. I get burnt every year. Like, I'm going to draft quarterbacks high, and then it just becomes, I wish I had this guy later. I wish I had an Aaron Rodgers in the 10th. Because I had thought about drafting a guy, I would have loved to have Derek Carr in the 8th, and I thought about it. Would have loved to see him in the 9th. Obviously, he didn't make it. But I still think there's some value there later on at quarterback. So if this was a 12, I probably would have taken one in the 12th round. It's just another team construction thing where I wanted that little extra. I like Khalil Herbert a lot. Wanted to kind of shore up that running back spot. And then, like, really, I probably would have drafted quarterbacks in 12 and 13 and had 3 or 4 of them. Probably would have taken 3 more quarterbacks if this draft continued on, just from a team build. So I'm locked up in my mind at running back, fairly good at wide receiver. Probably would have went QB tight end heavy late in the draft.
Yeah, I love that. Overall, I'm posting the alert that there's so if you guys stay tuned, there will be a rookie mock draft right after this. The link will be posted in about 3 minutes. I'm getting the post up right now on Twitter. Right now, what would you say your overall favorite team is?
Looking at it, we'll look back at J10 Fantasy's team, and we talked about him going 0 RB. Liked what he did with Rashad White. Has 2 question marks in Sanders and Montgomery, but on a team that is built to kind of win now, they're going to probably have roles this season. Looking at Josh, who was the other 0 RB, has Kamara, who I'm scared of right now. Love the Pacheco, love Zeke Elliott pick. Tua, Levis, and Carr, interesting. I think the best team for me is probably, what is it? Sedated Fork at the 11 spot. Yep. Kyler worries me at 111, but I love his running backs of ETN and Chubb, Aaron Jones, and AJ Dillon. Like, he's got that position locked. Love Kmet as a tight end. Chris Olave, people are down on. I love it. Pittman's good. You queued up in my queue to come back around after the Judy pick. Didn't make it. Kadarius Toney, I think could have so I think that's a real solid team. I'm just worried about that Kyler pick at 111. Had he taken Dak at 111 or Watson, I would be in love with this team.
Yep, I agree. Overall, my favorite team, I think it is J10 Fantasy's team. I have a real soft spot in my heart for that tight end double up right there, because you're almost putting a monopoly on that tier. You know what I mean? So if you find yourself like, okay, I need this other position, someone will be willing to trade for one of those tight ends and trade a lot for it.
Yeah, I mean, if Sedated Fork, if Cole Kmet doesn't work out and he needs a tight end, he might have to go get one. Right? If Darren Waller doesn't work out for you, you might have to go get one. Only issue with his team is Hollywood Brown at 6. Kyler's probably not going to start the season. There's some reports that Kyler might not come back till mid-season. What is that? Who's throwing him the ball, and what's that offense look like with no Hopkins, no Kyler, and a defensive-minded head coach? So that's a question mark for me in his wide receiver too. Deontay Johnson will clearly have a bounce back of scoring no touchdowns. He'll clearly score touchdowns and then Bateman's another like low volume. So he's got guys on like low volume. So Brown and Bateman are two wide receivers that are talented, but on low volume passing teams. I would put Marquise Brown in there if there's no Kyler Murray. If it's Trubisky or some other Teddy Bridgewater guy throwing the ball, it's going to be a low volume offense. So
man,
that's my question mark with his team, is just that I don't see a ton of upside.
By the way, guys, I dropped
the Trubisky and
the rookie draft link. We have 2 more spots open. Let's fill it up. Oh man, Trubisky, man. I remember when he signed with the Steelers and everyone was like, "Oh man, they finally got a good quarterback."
Mitch Trubisky. I love him.
Oh man.
And I've been writing the article on the coaching hire for Arizona for Nerds and kind of looking through it like, man, if Kyler doesn't come back, what do? I don't think they're going to roll out Colt McCoy. Trubisky would be Trubisky or Bridgewater or Brissett would be a reasonable starter for 6 games, right? Because I think at that point you're going, hey, we're not going to win this year.
Yep.
We just need someone who's cheap, can be competent. Maybe they win, 2, they go 2-4, or they go 3-3. They'd be happy.
Yeah.
So,
okay, we're all filled up with the rookie draft now. So let's do this. So this is also approaching it for a super flex, tight end premium, PPR mock draft. There's going to be 1-minute picks, and let's just get in on it. 101 is going to be what? Predict it.
It'll be Bryce Young.
Oh.
Oh, all right.
Wait, are you when you said Bryce Young, were you making a joke there, or do you actually think that a quarterback should go ahead of Robinson there?
In Superflex, I do.
Oh, okay, let's talk about this. I want to hear this. You're the first person I've talked to that thinks this way, and I can see the idea behind it.
Here's the deal. If Bijan Robinson is great, he should be 101. We just don't know if he is.
Yeah.
If Bryce Young is just okay, he's still going to start for 5 years. If Bijan Robinson is okay, he starts for 2. So you get more production out of the quarterback. If they're both great, you get more longevity out of quarterback in a super flex. If they're both okay, you definitely get more longevity. If they both suck, you still get the longevity, because even if Bryce Young sucks and he's the worst quarterback ever, he's going to get 3 years. I mean, Zach Wilson got that. I mean, it's just going to be, that's where it's going to be. And I just don't see it. I just like the longevity. In a one quarterback, it should be Bijan Robinson all day.
Yep.
I personally think, I'm a Stroud believer. I think Stroud's better than Bryce Young. I would take Stroud at 101 in a super flex. I'm happy to see him go before Bryce Young in this draft. This is great.
Where would you like him to end up on
which one
in the NFL? Oh man.
Who?
So
Bryce Young?
Stroud.
Or Stroud?
Stroud.
I would actually love for him to be on Carolina.
Okay.
I don't think he gets there. I think Carolina probably stays at 9, takes Levis. It seems to me that Indy is going to move up to take Bryce Young at 1. I think the Texans take Stroud at 2. I don't mind him on the Texans. I still believe that Davis Mills is not as bad as people think he is. I don't want him to go to Seattle. I don't want him to go to Washington. I think those are the only 3 teams I really like a quarterback on are Carolina, Colts, or Texans. Now, if the Jets don't get Carr or Rodgers and they go rookie, I'm okay with that. You got your happy dance on.
Getting Charbonnet in the 12th round makes me really happy. What are your thoughts on Charbonnet? Do you like him?
I like him. He has the potential to be up there with Gibbs. and be in that top tier, that second. I mean, really, it's a 1B type tier behind Robinson. I'm very curious to see how he does at the combine, like what he measures at, what his 40 time looks at, what his bench press looks like. I think he can separate himself from that Zach Evans and Sean Tucker and Tank Bigsby group. So I like him. I think that's a great pick at 112. I can't think of anybody else
Yeah.
I'd rather have there unless you want to go with a Flowers or a Boot. I think that's a great pick for you at the 112.
Yeah, I love that. Levis to the Raiders, Josh asks. I like that. Are you a Levis guy? Where are you at with him?
I think Levis is good, not great. I see him a lot like Mac Jones. Has the skills and the kind of the maturity to do it, but needs a good system and a good coach. That's why I'd love to see him go to Carolina with Frank Reich. I think it's a great match. It seems to be a Frank Reich type guy. Also, very happy to get Tanks Bigsby there at the 206. So Levis to Raiders. I mean, obviously you'll have Devontae Adams to throw the ball to, which is always super helpful. I just don't know if the Raiders go rookie. Like, I think they have to bring in a vet on some level because they're built to win now. Adams is older. Waller is older. Don't know what they're doing at running back. They may, keep Josh Jacobs, who's getting up there in running back years. I think the Raiders are kind of built to win now. If they go rookie, they might as well just trade Adams, trade Max Crosby, trade Waller, like just go straight rebuild. I don't think they're in that mode right now. So I can't see the Raiders bringing in a rookie. They may roll with Jarrett Stidham for a year, and they
He
may
doesn't look
draft,
terrible.
someone. He doesn't look great, but they may roll with him and go. But they could roll with Stidham and draft like a Hayden Hooker in the 4th or 5th rounds. Like they could draft a guy later or see what happens next year in the free agency market.
J10 just so currently in these rookie drafts, Spears has been like his ADP is still like late 3rd. So I've just been taking him and it always just makes my drafts look so much better. But J10 knows his stuff and took him in front of me. Do you have any thoughts on Spears? How does he project, do you think?
I'd like to see him a little bit bigger. Was 195, I think. That's what they have him here on Sleepers, 195. Yeah. I'd like him to be just a 210. Oh man, Hayden Hooker went. I'd like him just to be a little bowling ball and just kind of like bowl through people. I want him to be a slightly bigger back. Again, I don't see him being a bell cow 3-down back. I think he's a change of pace guy. We'll see what his 40 looks like. Again, in that group, like for me, it's Robinson, Gibbs, Charbonnet, and then it's an Evans, a Bigsby, I think, of the next group, and I'm waiting to see who can jump up into that group. And it could be Spears. He had a great Senior Bowl, was the standout, so his buzz is there. I'm just wondering if he'll keep it. I mean, Tulane's not known for producing, high-end, fancy, NFL players.
Yeah, that's where I actually, if Roschon Johnson has a good combine, I could see him potentially kind of taking over the hype for the later round running backs because he has that size. His issue is the classic, kind of like Miles Sanders when he was at Penn State behind Barkley. It's like, well, what are you going to do? It doesn't matter how good you are because you're not as good as that guy. So
yes, I agree.
So if Johnson tests out well and if he interviews well, I can honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised. This is kind of a hot take, a little bit of a hot take, but I would not be surprised if Johnson actually was drafted in the NFL draft higher than a Zach Evans.
Yeah, that is a bit of a hot take, but I could see it.
Yeah, because they're.
I mean, he's also getting that like bump from being in Texas, and people are going to say, "Well, you're behind, that guy. You can't really get the playing time." Looks like he suffered a hand injury at the Senior Bowl, which is the first time hearing about.
Really?
But That's what Sleeper's saying.
Okay, so at 312, I am starting to look at tight end right here because I mean Musgrave's there, and like I was saying, he kind of has the tools. We just don't know who he is yet in football.
Yeah.
But I'm going Raheem Jarrett here. I just really like. There's certain parts to his game that I like. He kind of had a disappointing year. I think that whole Maryland offense had a disappointing year. But I think that he could, if he tests well, he's going to be at the combine, right? He has no injury or anything.
I'd have to pull up the list. I actually put that together earlier today, and there were so many players.
We'll say that he'll be there.
We'll say he'll be there.
And then Musgrave goes at 4-1. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like honestly, kind of where I'm at, I know these names, and I've actually cut up film for the Dynasty Nerds film room on.
Which, by the way, you do a great job at, because I can't do film cutting, and you do a great job cutting up film.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a blast. By the way, little plug. Do you have a code for Dynasty Nerds yet that you can plug? Okay, so I'll use mine. But next time when you guest, if you ever want to guest again,
I do.
Great. We need to hook you up with a code. So if you use the code Pete at checkout, PETE, that's my name, you get 15% off of any membership at Dynasty Nerds. And that includes the film room, which is super awesome. I'm really proud to actually be a part of that. We've been working really hard with doing the All-22 and just making sure that everyone's covered. Were you wanting Chris Rodriguez there?
So I wanted both him and Dwayne McBride. So when we're talking about Spears, like you're talking about, these guys are both 5'11", but they're 224 and 215, whereas Spears is 5'11", 195. That's what I'm saying. Like if Spears was 10 pounds, 15 pounds heavier, I would like that a lot more.
Yep. So what were you thinking? Max Duggan?
If I didn't take Stetson Bennett the round before, I would think Max.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Wow.
I'm actually looking at tight end, but I'm actually gonna go CJ Johnson. So I like Stetson Bennett and Mac Duggan, and I think at the combine, teams are gonna fall in love with them in the interview. They're gonna love their leadership and their poise and their moxie. I think we're going to see a lot of buzz coming out of that for those guys of like, hey, they're like, they may not have the skills, like the measurables and the tangibles, but like their intangibles of that leadership and what they bring to the locker room is really going to, I think, impress people. And really it takes one or two teams. It takes two teams to really fall in love with a guy to see his draft, because they'll start, they're going to take him here. They might trade up, and it's just going to push his draft stock up. So Stetson Bennett and Max Duggan, I think, have that potential to really wow the interview process, and that's where they'll really shine. So I'm expecting when I go down there to hear a lot of buzz about these two guys just really showing off in that area. And then if they go out and show out in their passing and some of their drills, like that buzz will continue to grow. We'll see them pick up. Russell Wilson in the draft process won people over with his leadership skills and his personality. It wasn't necessarily his passing. Yep. It wasn't necessarily what he did on the field. It was, oh my gosh, this guy's great. And he got drafted, right? Seattle drafted Russell Wilson, and they had just signed Matt Flynn to this massive contract. And Pete Carroll said, no, this guy's our leader. We're gonna have him go. And I think you could see a Max Duggan go to a team. I would love Pete Carroll to draft Stetson Bennett or Max Duggan, and then go, hey, we got Geno with it. Let's say they keep Geno, and they go, hey, maybe we just go with this rookie and have Geno back him up. It'd be suck for Geno, because I think Geno deserves a start, but I could see a team going, oh wow, this guy really won us over, and we got him in the 4th or 5th round, and what he's providing to our locker room, what he provides to the chemistry and the makeup of our team really impresses us, and he gets a shot. So
I love that.
I like both Stetson Bennett and Max Duggan.
You made me draft Duggan at 4-12. Yes. So there we go. You won me over. Thanks everyone for doing this. This was a blast. Thanks Dustin for coming on.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah, before we go off air, does anyone have any questions that you want to hear these great minds answer? I will give approximately, let's say, 10 seconds of dead air.
Well, as you give dead air and they got questions, I
Yeah.
posted a question on Twitter. If there's anything people are looking forward to at the combine, if there's a specific, if they're looking for, hey, what does Stenson Bennett do in the drills? What does Tajay Spear actually measuring? What is Zach Charbonnet's 40 time? Like, let me know those things because I'm going. Me and another guy, Steve Bradshaw for Nerds, are going down to cover it in person. So we'll be down there, and we're going to be posting, some of that stuff. But we want to know what you guys are looking for. If you guys are specifically like, hey, how does this guy measure? How does this guy do in the 40? How's he do in the vertical? Let us know and we'll report back. And we just want to kind of get some of the nerd herd's thoughts on the combine because we want to report what you guys want us to report on.
So we have two great questions by two great people. The first one is Josh asks, looking at Carr, Pickett, and Goff in a startup, who do you pick? He has Lamar Jackson as his quarterback one. I don't know if that changes anything.
It does. I would take Goff. I think you get a few more years and you know where he's at. Like, you don't know where Carr is going to be. Yeah, I believe Carr's a starter in 2023. I know Goff is a starter for Detroit, and I love the weapons that he has. If Carr goes to New Orleans, he doesn't have great weapons. He has Olave and the ghost of Michael Thomas. Like, there's not much left there. Jared Goff has played well in Detroit. He's got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, DeAndre Swift. I assume they're going to bring in a tight end. I like the pieces there, and that team is poised to make a run. So I go Goff over Carr. Okay. I don't pick it as okay. He's far behind those two for me.
Josh asks, where would Pickett fall in this quarterback class?
I think Pickett would be in that conversation with Levis and Richardson. I think he'd probably be right ahead of pre-combine. He'd be right ahead of Levis. I think post-combine, he falls behind Levis. I still think the hand size thing, which is totally ridiculous, still becomes a knock against him.
Yep.
I think he's never going to reach the Stroud Young level. Like, he was never going to be there. Richardson's got some buzz. I think Pickett would really have to ball out to jump Richardson. So I think he's right in that, 3, 4. I think I would put him at 4, and then maybe post-combine, if Levis does well, put Pickett at 5.
Yeah, I love that. I agree, too.
I also don't think Pickett was the best quarterback in last year's class. I really liked Sam Howell.
Yes! I knew we were best friends.
Yes. And I think Sam Howell's going to ball out this year for the Commanders.
Yes! Do you want to be here weekly? Let's do this.
Anytime you want Sam Howell, just say Sam Howell 3 times and I'll just magically appear.
Oh, man. This has made my night.
I think, and if Sam Howell was in this draft class, I think he's up there. I don't think he reached Stroud Young, but he's up there with Richardson. Last year's draft, they fell because there wasn't a ton of quarterback-needy teams. This year, there's a lot more quarterback-needy teams. So there's a lot more buzz. So, like, if Stroud and Young are in last year's draft class, I think they go in the end of the first, second round. Like, they're not going super high. I just don't. There wasn't teams that needed them last year, right? Houston was going to roll with Davis Mills. Seattle was going to roll with Geno. There wasn't a ton of teams that needed quarterbacks last year, so that's partially why they fell in the draft. So I think even if Stroud and Young are in last year's class, you're looking at maybe Young goes where Pickett went, and maybe someone trades up at the end of the first round to get that 5th-year option on both of them. But late first, early second is where they go last year.
Yeah, I'm looking actually because this did really make me think. I think so. Do you think that the Falcons would have still gone Drake London at 8?
Yeah, I do think they do because they brought in Mariota to be the starter for last year and knew they were going to take a guy later. I think they liked Ritter, and I think they just waited for him to fall. I think they maybe take someone like Bryce Young in the second round instead of whoever they took last year in the second round, which I don't remember at this point. So I do still think they go Drake London, because Drake London, who is great, was great in college, like really had a lot of buzz. So I do think they still go Drake London at 8.
Okay. I could maybe see. Man, now that I'm seeing this draft order, I do agree with you. I mean, it's not really until I look at the run 1920 Saints, Steelers, that area that is like, okay, those are quarterback needy teams. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, right.
I never really thought about it that way.
Detroit was going to stick with Goff. Jacksonville had Lawrence. Houston was going to roll with Mills. The Jets had Zach Wilson. Giants probably were going to stick with Daniel Jones. Panthers had plenty of people. Falcons at 8. Seattle was going to stick with Geno. New Orleans at 11. Maybe they think about it. But they needed a wide receiver, and there was going to be a run. They knew Detroit was taking a wide receiver, right? At that point in London, Garrett Wilson was going. So I think they still stick with Olave. Eagles weren't taking one. Ravens aren't taking one. Texans maybe think about it at 15.
Yeah.
Commanders don't, because they liked Wentz.
Carson Wentz.
I try to stay away from any Carson Wentz talk. Are you a Carson Wentz believer?
Man, so I'm a Commanders fan. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty mediocre at best. But so Wentz, I think he as a person is overhated.
Yes.
I think
I'll start this conversation with saying that my best friend works for Carson Wentz, so I have somewhat of a personal connection to Carson Wentz. I've never actually met the man, but my best friend works for him. Okay. I agree with you. As a person, he's overhated.
Yeah.
As a quarterback, he's not horrible. It's just all like tangibly, he has the skills, he has the athletic ability. He just tries too hard, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah. It's just kind of that classic. Just, I think when you're a quarterback and you're developing, you see what good quarterback coaching does with like a Josh Allen. You know, just taking that raw hunk of potential and just changes becoming that elite quarterback. I think I look at Wentz and he could do so much with just pure physical talent.
Yeah.
But just with the injuries and just teams figuring him out, I think he just wasn't able to change with the league.
I think Carson Wentz is fragile. Like, he just can't stay healthy. I think he has always been the most talented player on his team and has always been able to just go out there and physically do it. I also strongly feel that football is not his number one passion. I almost know that for a fact. And so when it comes to, hey, you need to put the extra work in, he goes, I think he just goes, I'm talented, gifted, I'll be all right. Whereas you see someone like Josh Allen go, yeah, I'm physically, but I need to work on my mechanics. I need to take this offseason and get. And I don't think Carson Wentz does that. He's got a lot of other ventures out there that he's really passionate about, which is great. He does a lot of great work in the community, does some really cool stuff with his charity. I just don't think it's his, like, I think he loves football, but I don't think it's his number one passion. And when things get hard, he just goes, okay, I'll be all right. Like, God will take care of me. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So do you think Wentz is done, or do you think he gets do you think he's done as a starter?
Yeah. I can't really see even like a situation right now that a team would take him in as at least the quarterback one. And, like this year, and like when Washington brought him on, it wasn't like, ooh, Taylor Heineke versus Carson Wentz. It was
Carson Wentz.
But now I could kind of see like maybe like even like a place like Seattle where it's like super chill. And
I'll tell you where I think he's going to go, and that's Jacksonville. I think he becomes the backup in Jacksonville.
Yeah, that would be nice.
He's got connections with Doug Peterson. He's good friends with Press Taylor, the offensive coordinator. He's friends with Chris Manhertz, tight end. It makes sense for Jacksonville to bring in a kind of veteran to back up Trevor Lawrence. Similar styles of play, like they're not going to be taking off and running anytime soon. it depends on if Kyler is going to be out for a longer period of time than we expect. If Kyler misses 6 games, I could see maybe Arizona bringing someone like Wentz. I think they're more likely to bring in a Bridgewater, Brissett, Mitch Trubisky, like I said. But they could bring in Wentz and win, 4 out of 6, right, and still have a chance. But I've said since the day that they were basically going to cut him in Washington, I said he's destined for the Jacksonville Jaguars as a backup.
Love it. Okay, so we actually have a deluge of good questions. Do you have
All
time
right,
for
let's
this?
go. Yeah,
okay.
Let's go.
Woo, okay. So number 1, Dustin asks, what are your thoughts on Anthony Richardson? Very polarizing player this year. And for reference, he went 105 in our rookie draft.
I like him. He's what the NFL wants in quarterbacks now, that kind of dual threat. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. He's kind of got that Josh Allen build. It's going to be fit for me once he's drafted. I have him as my fourth quarterback. I have Stroud, Young, Levis, then Richardson before they land. Last year 2 years ago, I had Mac Jones, Trey Lance. Or actually, I had Trey Lance, then Mac Jones. And once Mac Jones got drafted to Patriots, I moved him up to 1 just because it was a better fit. So if Anthony Richardson goes to a place that will utilize him that way, if he goes to New Orleans, I would love that, because I think they would use him in that Taysom Hill type. We have these design run plays for him. He goes to Carolina. Frank Reich doesn't use him as a running quarterback. Like, it's just not. It's a waste there. So I think it's really fit. He has potential. I want to see him throw in person. I haven't watched a ton of his game films. I don't watch a ton of college football to begin with. I watch, highlights and start scouting around this time. I think he has potential, but it really depends on landing spot. My fear is that Stroud and Young go early first round, Levis goes mid first round, and then someone jumps up in the late first round to get that extra 5th-year option and takes a Hooker or a Duggan or Stetson Bennett, and then Richardson falls. And if he starts to fall, that slide could go real far, real fast, because there's not a ton of quarterback needy teams, and he could start falling and falling and falling and falling and falling. I would love to see him in Baltimore as the backup if they, put Lamar on a 1-year deal, right? If they put Lamar on whatever tag or whatever they got and bring Richardson to sit behind him and, let him run that offense the same way Lamar does. I don't know if that happens. He could drop to the 5th round and we go up, he's done.
Yeah.
Right. Because no one wants a 5th round quarterback, but I still think he has potential. He's just going to need to get his shot. And I'm not sure if he gets a shot this year. I think he has to wait till next year to actually get his shot to start.
I love it. So Levis or Richardson, you are doing a rookie mock right now for your team. Actually, not a mock. It's an actual rookie draft. Before the draft, who are you picking?
Levis.
Okay, perfect. Next question is...
ask me again that question after the combine. We'll see what I say.
Yep. So rebuilding. This is Adam W41 asks, rebuilding, fair value in picks for Khalil Herbert.
Oh, I'm a Herbert believer. Did he say standard or super flex?
Adam, standard or super flex? Or one quarterback, right? Yeah.
Yeah, one quarterback. Let's see. Khalil Herbert.
Actually, he didn't answer that. Let's say super flex right now.
I mean, it doesn't make a difference really because he's a running back. If I can get an early second, I'm super happy. So, do you know about Peakton High School's trade value charts? Pete?
No, I do not.
So, Alex Cork, Peakton High School on Twitter, so it's Peaked in HS, puts together trade value charts. What he does is he aggregates all the consensus rankings. So he uses Keep Trade Cut and Fantasy Pros and a bunch of other mocks. It basically puts a consensus market value, and he does it every month. And he's got a Patreon. It's the only charts I use when I'm looking at values.
Okay.
His February values that just came out last week has Khalil Herbert worth 27 points, which is equal to an early, basically a mid-second rounder. Now, these are what the market, what Alex says. Alex, it's not Alex's opinion. He just goes by what he finds the market values and correlates them all together. I think an early first is perfect value for Khalil Herbert. I'm a Khalil Herbert believer. I'm not sure I trade him. I think I want to keep him to see what Chicago does. Now, if you believe that Chicago is going to bring in a running back, I think you trade him because you are feared that his value drops.
Yeah.
If they don't bring in a running back, I think his value goes up to clearly an early first, if not late, or an early second, if not late first. So if I can get an early first for him now, I think that's the peak of his value. It's a little bit high what it is right now, but you get away from the risk of them bringing in a Singletary or Miles Sanders and killing his value. Because if they bring in a guy, his value is going to fall to late second, if not early third.
So let's say if like late in the draft, they draft a Kenny McIntosh in like the 4th. Where would you say his value? Would he become like a potential buy there if it's just kind of like a later round running back like that?
Yeah, I think if it's a later round running back, and especially someone like that who's a bigger back, right? Like if they get a big back, I'm okay with that. Like my fear is that they get a smaller back that has the same skill set as Herbert, and
okay,
if
like
they bring in a
Brown.
Yeah, if they bring in a big, like, bowling ball type that's just going to take the goal line work, I'm okay with that because I still like Khalil Herbert's pass catching ability.
Okay.
I like his ability to be a 3-down back, and then just they bring in a bigger guy to change a pace or for those short yardage or goal lines. If they bring in if they go out and get, even if they go get a Miles Sanders, if they get a Devin Singletary, I don't like that. If they bring in, a plotting running back, even if they keep Dave Montgomery, I'm okay with that. I don't think it affects his value because he has a different skill set than Montgomery, but he has the same skill set to me as Singletary, Miles Sanders, where he catch passes, be kind of that speed guy. I want them to bring in a bruiser because I want to save that. I want to save Herbert's body. I don't want him to be doing the goal line work. I don't want him taking those 1 yard rushes for the 3rd and 1. I don't want him taking those rushes. I don't want Justin Fields to do it either because that's just going to eat up his body. So if they bring in a big guy, I'm okay with it.
Okay, that's great. Josh asks, who goes to the Giants at wide receiver? Wan'Dale's a good number 2, but who do you guys think is number 1?
Can I say Isaiah Hodgins? I mean,
sorry. I was literally about to say that. I like Hodgins.
I am the first fantasy analyst to be on Isaiah Hodgins. I wrote an article about him. He was in my article that came out November 16th.
That's right.
Like, hey, you should buy this guy now.
Yeah.
That was, and so one guy was like, "Oh, I was on him on Thanksgiving." I was like, yeah, "I had you beat by a week." I don't think Isaiah Hodgins is a 1. But like I've been on Isaiah Hodgins since mid-November, guys. So and really I started writing this article early November. It just came out November 16th. I'm a huge Isaiah Hodgins believer. I don't know if they can get a 1. I don't know if they have the space to bring back Daniel Jones and Saquon and get a 1.
Yeah.
I think they're just going to roll with Wan'Dale and Isaiah Hodgins and maybe bring in even if they bring in Jacoby Myers, who I think is the best value out there in free agency market,
this wide receiver free agency class is bad.
If they bring in Myers, he'll be the de facto 1, but I still would rather have Hodgins and Wan'Dale just because of the value in drafts. So I don't know if there is a 1. I don't think they can go trade for a T. Higgins or, a guy like that that's coming off his deal. They can't trade for an IU because it's just not going to work. I don't think they have the ammunition to go get them.
Do you think that they'll use their first on like an Addison or a JSN or something like that?
They could, because what do they draft? They're at
it's around the 20s.
Yeah,
early 20s.
I would assume Addison and JSN and Quentin Johnson will be gone by then.
Really? Okay.
And so I think they need to spend their first on an offensive lineman just to kind of keep whether that's Daniel Jones and or Saquon Barkley, give them the space to work. Yeah. I would love it if they could get a JSN. Like if you're telling me you get him in the 20s, like that's a great pick. I just don't know if those guys will be there with how needy wide receiver teams are and realizing that the NFL nowadays, you can't just have 1, you have to have 2. So, right, Cincy's got 2, Miami's got 2, Seattle's always had 2, and they've been competitive. San Fran has 2, Philly has 2. KC's really the only team that's been able to do it without 2 for a consistent basis. I think that's a big problem with Buffalo is they need a second. So I think we're going to see teams get needy and move up into that, late teens, that 16, 17 round to get these guys because they know they need them. So I could see, unless the Giants want to move up from 21 or 22, whatever they have, into the 18, 17 range to get one of those guys, I think they miss out. So if they get JSN, I'm all for it.
Okay. Yeah. That would be great. Sedated Fork asks, ooh, this is an interesting question.
Okay.
Which primarily backup quarterback this year is a primary starter somewhere else this year? So, like a Heineke, or you could maybe say Ritter.
Yeah, I think Desmond Ritter should have been the starter.
Yeah.
I think they should have started the season with him. I'm still a believer in Tyler Huntley. Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley.
Ooh, man. I love it.
I still think he has the talent to be... I think he's Lamar Jackson light. I think he could start on the team. He's very much what I see Anthony Richardson being. Like, he has those skill talents. He just needs a shot. And Tyler Huntley has not gotten a shot. He's played well in the games he's played, which has been limited. So Tyler Huntley is the guy that I think could go somewhere and be a starter. I still believe Mitch Trubisky can be a decent starter. He's not your franchise. You maybe get a year or two out of him, but he could be a decent player. Obviously, if we're talking anybody from San Fran, I think is a starter, right? Whether you want to call Jimmy G the backup or Purdy or Lance the backup.
Yeah, do they even have a starter?
No, I think that's like quarterback by committee. I don't know what they're going to do next year.
Patrick, thank you for asking your question also in the YouTube chat, because this is a really good question. He asks, how much do you have to add to Diggs to get CeeDee Lamb, one quarterback?
I don't think you have to add much, to be honest with you. I think you probably... So Peakton High School's chart says Diggs at 73, CeeDee Lamb at 84. Now, his thing is, like, as you move up, you have to overpay that 84.
Yep.
If you give Diggs and a second, I think that's CeeDee Lamb, right? And that all depends on what people think of CeeDee Lamb. Like, I'm high on CeeDee Lamb. Other people aren't. So if you find a guy that the guy CeeDee Lamb has CeeDee Lamb as his 6th wide receiver and has Diggs as his 8th, like, there's not that much of a difference. I would give Diggs and a mid-second for CeeDee Lamb and try to get CeeDee Lamb. If I'm the CeeDee Lamb owner, I wouldn't do that because I love CeeDee Lamb, but I think that's fair.
So if you were trading someone who had Lamb as wide receiver 3 or 4,
like I do, so I have Lamb as 3. Yep.
Would you be willing to give Diggs plus? So this is one quarterback. Let's say Diggs plus 1.8.
Oh, if I'm the Lamb owner, I take that.
Okay. What? So that's good enough for you as wide receiver 3. Where's Diggs for you ranked?
I have Diggs as 1, 2, 3. I have him at... I think I have him in the top 10. He's definitely in my top 10. I think he's 7 or 8.
Okay. So is he... Are they in the same tier then?
No, I have Lamb as that top tier with the top 3. Then it's like AJ Brown, Diggs. I have DK. I don't know if I put Waddle or Tyreek Hill in that group. Garrett Wilson's on the fringe. T. Higgins I have in that group. So it's that next group. It's that group tier 2 of wide receivers for me. But again, that drop off, when we start talking about tiers, like, what's the difference between wide receiver 3 in tier 1 and wide receiver 8 in tier 2?
Yeah.
At the end of the year, it's 10, 15 points. So maybe a point a game. Now, the difference is, like, someone like Tyreek Hill is going to have those big boom bust games, right? Yeah. I think Diggs is a little more consistent than, I think CeeDee Lamb is very consistent. So, like, I'm not trading... It's not like I'm trading CeeDee Lamb, who's consistent, for a boom bust guy like a Jalen Waddle. I'm trading consistency for consistency. So, in my mind, what am I missing out on by trading Lamb for Diggs? I'm missing out on maybe a couple big games. So maybe Lamb averages 20 points a game and Diggs averages 18. So maybe 2 points a game. I'm going to make that up in the pick easily. So there's just not that much difference. And I think that's where people
And
get lost when they start trading because they're like, oh, it's a different tier. It's like, yeah, but point differential is
yeah.
not that big of
Does
a
the
difference.
age play anything for you?
A little bit. I mean, that's why I would want a high pick. But like I said, I play my dynasty in 3-year
Yeah.
windows. I think you have 3 years left of Diggs being a top 10 wide receiver. I think you have 6, 7 with Lamb. So
Okay.
yeah, you get more time, but like that pick should make up for that. So over the course of the next 10 years, I get 3 years with Diggs, and then let's say 7 years with let's say I take a rookie wide receiver there. So I'm getting 10 years. I'm going to get 7 out of Lamb. So
Yeah.
over the course of 10 years, I'm getting 3 extra years of production. It's just, you got to hope you hit on those picks. And that's where people love picks because they want to be able to draft the next CD Lamb or the next Jamar Chase. You just have to hit on that pick. So I would do it for a mid first. And
so Patrick offered a Diggs at 24 first and the 212 for Lamb and a 24 second. Where are you at on that?
Oh, so it's Diggs, the 2 what this year? It's a 24 first and the 2 something this year.
212. So pretty much a
212.
third.
Yeah, pretty much a third. Yeah, I think that's fair. Right, you're giving away a 24 first for your 24 second, right? And you're just making up that difference. I wouldn't mind if I could get another pick like a 24 third or a 25 second or something, like just to kind of balance that out, or some other young prospect, someone like give me
Rondell Moore.
Yeah, or even like a young tight end like a Quentin Taro from Houston, who I really like. Like, give me someone like that.
What a good name to drop.
I've been doing research on him, so he's on my mind. But like, if you can get that guy thrown in, like, do it.
Yeah. So if anyone has any more questions, I think we'll be signing off. Where can we find you on the socials?
On Twitter, it's the DUnit13, so THEDUNIT 13. That's Twitter. Then you can pretty much the only social I really use. Maybe get some Instagram or TikTok later on this year. We'll see. And then you can find my stuff on Dynasty Nerds, Dynasty Pros, and QB List. But most of my stuff will be on Dynasty Nerds. But follow me on Twitter because I'll be at the Combine in 2 weeks. Tweeting out stuff, and then we'll be getting some articles out on Dynasty Nerds, me and Steve Bradshaw. And then you can check me out. If you just follow me on Twitter, I usually link all the podcasts I'm on. I do a lot of guest spots. That's all I do pretty much. Doing a Dynasty best ball startup draft, 16 team right now. It's an industry league, and we're halfway through. So part 1, 2, and 3 are out. Me and my co-manager Steve are kind of laying out our picks and kind of diving into it. So part 4 will be coming out once it ends. It'll be the last 10 picks. So if you're looking for some more mock draft stuff, it's out there on YouTube, and you can find it on my Twitters. Twitter's where it's at for me. That's kind of trying to build that Twitter base right now.
And really fast, one more question. Who are you most excited to see at the Combine?
I'm really excited to see those top 3 wide receivers, mainly Quentin Johnson, to see if he can set himself apart from from Addison and the other JSN. Like, if he can really measure and show some things in the skill and like the 3 cone and his vertical jump, and I don't care much about bench press, but even just like the passing drills when the quarterbacks are throwing, like if he's out there and shows the hustle and does well in the interviews, I'm really interested to see how those top 3 guys shake out and see if post combine those are still the top 3, or if one of them falls out or one of them separates themselves to be a clear one. So those are the guys I'm most interested in.
I love that. And you guys can find me at Peter Bartosky, PeterBartasky on Twitter. I also edit most of the Dynasty Nerds content. So you just see a lot of my fingerprints everywhere.
He's got to deal with my horrible writing and all my mistakes.
No, that's what ChatGPT is for. But so once again, just a reminder, join the Nerd Herd if you haven't yet. We have a lot of tools there for such a good price. Once again, use code PETE, P-E-T-E, for 15% off. Other than that, thanks for tuning in, guys. This was a blast. This was really fun.
Was a blast. This was great.
Yeah, but you guys are awesome. Interacting with you guys is just the best. And we're just so blessed to be able to do this. But Anyway, have a great night and have a great week. Bye, guys.
Yeah.